Once again, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. We continue our live broadcast here from Kirkland on this 29th day of Muharram. As I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the program, there have been no verified sightings of the moon anywhere in North America. So tomorrow, Friday, will be the 30th of Muharram, and the first day of Safar will be on Saturday, inshallah, on September 19th. Muharram 25th is the day where we remember our fourth Imam, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. This is Wafat, and today we have planned a reflection from Brother Yasir for the occasion of the Wafat of Imam Zain al-Abidin. I request all of us to welcome him with salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brother Yasir, the audio is on. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Jalanko. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا بالقاسم محمد اللهم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. I want to start by just talking about one of the verses in the Quran, Surah Araf, verse 7. Surah 7, verse 81. In it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And of those whom we have created are a people who guide with the truth, and thereby they do justice." So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a clear message about the role of our imams. They are meant to guide us in this world, and they will provide intercession on the Day of Judgment. And that's kind of the role of the 12 imams, and they're the best examples and practical examples of these words in the Quran. Though every imam had their own challenges from different rulers and different caliphs at the time. The circumstances of the tragedy of Karbala was very difficult on our fourth imam, Imam Ali ibn Hussein as-Sajjad alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. He was faced with the most difficult situation, or a very difficult situation, in fulfilling his responsibility as the imam after the events of Karbala. So what I'm going to discuss is a little bit about the role of Imam Sajjad in continuing the mission of his father, Imam Hussein, through his speeches in the court of Yazid, his roles in Syria and Kufa, and as a prisoner, but also as a leader, and showing his leadership through the times that he was a prisoner in all throughout the time after Karbala. He made people aware of the sacrifices of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was preaching to the people about Islam. So to start off, he had Imam Zain al-Abidin was one of the titles of the fourth Imam. It means the ornament of the worshippers. He was given this name by Rasulullah himself. He had Imam Hussein on his lap at one point, and the Prophet looked at Jabir ibn Abdullah and he said that this Hussein will have a son named Ali. And at that time, he told him that on the Day of Judgment, there will be a call, "Where is Zain al-Abidin?" And his son Ali will come forward and say, "Ana Zain al-Abidin." So even before he was born, he kind of gave him this role and this title to the fourth Imam. The other title he has, which I've mentioned, is Al-Sajjad, which means the one who always prostrates. And he was given this title because he was always in prayer and always known to be known to be someone who was always in prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what I want to discuss is, like I mentioned, a little bit about his life after Karbala and what he did immediately after and what he did much later in his life. As many of you know, that after the tragedy of Karbala, the Imam lived for a long period of time. He was born on the 5th of Shaban in the 38th year after Hijrah, and he died on 25th of Muharram in the 95th year after Hijrah. So he was about 57 years old. And as you know, he was about 21, 22 when Karbala occurred. So he had a long life after Karbala. And so what I will talk about now is that when Imam Sajjad was born, his mother she died, unfortunately, a few days after giving birth to him. His mother was Persian. Her name was Shahzanan. And she was from a very wealthy, or a very successful line of kings who were, after Khurasan was conquered by the Muslims, she was kind of chosen by Imam Ali for Imam Hussein as a wife. And after that, her name was changed to Shehrbano because Shahzanan means Sayyidatul Nisa in Arabic, and that was as a title that was reserved only for Bibi Fatima. So because of the status of his father and his mother, Imam Sajjad also was known by the name Al-Khuyaratain, which means the son of the best of two. So he had like good lineage from both his mom's side and his dad's side. So like I mentioned, his mother died after giving birth to him. So he grew up with the other wife of his father as a mother figure to him. He grew up with his father and his uncle, Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And he had a lot of respect for his stepmother, even though she wasn't like biologically his mother. He, when she would prepare food for him and put it in front of him, he wouldn't eat it and he would just look at it. When she would ask, "What's wrong? Why aren't you eating it?" he would say, "I'm scared to put my hands on the food that you had your eyes on." So this is how much respect and how much of a pious individual he was. So, like I mentioned, during Karbala, he was ill and he couldn't fight in the battle. And some say this is a sign from Allah that he was a hujjah of Allah on earth. And so he had to survive Karbala for the imamate to continue. So the days after Karbala were the hardest for Imam Sajjad and his family. They were taken prisoners to Yazid, and they were kind of enslaved with chains. And he was only 22, and like I mentioned, he was still ill immediately after the events of Karbala. So there's a few things that I want to talk about. There's a book, A Probe into the History of Ashura, and so there's a few events from that I want to talk about that occurred right after Karbala. One of them being that Imam Sajjad was brought to Ibn Ziyad's court, and made to stand before him. And Ibn Ziyad asked him, "Who are you?" The Imam replied, "I am Ali ibn Hussein." And Ibn Ziyad said, Did Allah not kill Ali ibn Hussein? And the Imam replied, "I had a brother whose name was also Ali, and the people killed him." So the key note about this statement that he made is that he clarifies that the people killed him, whereas Ibn Ziyad had said, "Did Allah not kill him?" So obviously Imam Sajjad is referring to his brother Ali Akbar, who also had the same name as him. But what the Imam is teaching us here is that not to attribute sin to Allah, not to say that this was because of Allah or sin because of Allah. It's the people that are doing this. And Ibn Ziyad replied to this. He said, "It's not so. Allah killed him." And in reply to this, the Imam recited a verse of the Quran. And that goes in Surah Al-Zumar, Surah 39, verse 22. It says, Allah takes the souls when the time of their death comes, but he is not their killer. So this is the kind of the way that the Imam would talk and converse. He would always refer to Quran and like just have a solid, mild temperament and not like get upset or anything. So this was kind of one incident. And then so when Ibn Ziyad saw that the young ailing prisoner was giving back replies time and time again to whatever he said, he got annoyed and said, "Do you still have courage to resist what I say?" And he said to his men, "Take him away and chop off his head." On hearing this, Lady Zainab got very worried and disturbed. However, the only reply which the fourth Imam gave to Ibn Ziyad was, "If you kill me, with whom will you send these women?" Then he added, "After killing me, you should send them with a pious Muslim who should behave towards them according to the orders of Islam." The fourth Imam did not utter a sentence requesting Ibn Ziyad to spare his life. He only said, "When I am killed, do not send these sacred women a man who is impious and a non-Muslim." So again, what this shows is that he's not going to sit there and beg for his life to someone who's clearly a tyrant. And so that was one incident. The second incident is also occurred shortly after Karbala. When Imam Sajjad was a captive in Damascus, and he was going down the street, and this incident is from the same book. A man named Ibrahim bin Talha bin Ubaidullah Taimi came before him. This was in the bazaar, and he said to him tauntingly, "O Ali bin Hussein, who was victorious in this battle?" So what he meant to say is that the Ahl Bayt obviously suffered a defeat and their enemies won or had a victory. So the Imam said to him in reply, he said, "Now that the time for prayers is approaching, you should pronounce azan and iqama so that you may come to know and understand clearly as to who has been victorious." So the Imam tells him that even though you belong to the tribe of Taim, you're perhaps happy that you pronounce that you won the or you defeated the Bani Hashim. But however, as long as you're a Muslim, it's necessary for you to pronounce azan and iqama and testify that Muhammad is the Prophet of Allah. And so he's kind of showing us that we and not others are the descendants and heirs of Prophet Muhammad, without mentioning whose name, and invoking divine blessings for him and the prayers of any Muslim are not acceptable. So this is a very strong reply. And so long as Islam exists, the honor and glory belonging to us, the descendants of Muhammad, will also remain established and confirmed. So this was the Imam's reply to this man who was just kind of provoking him and putting him down. They were very powerful words, and they've lived on for many years after they were said. There's been many speeches or many examinations on these words that he said. The third thing I want to talk about is that also shortly after Imam Sajjad got another opportunity when the Ahl Bayt were made to stand by the gate of the Masjid of Damascus. So this is the place where the prisoners were usually kept. An old man came who was a Syrian, and he said that, I thank Allah that he has killed and destroyed you and annihilated people like you. He then began abusing the Ahl Bayt, just saying abuses and verbal abuses to them. The fourth Imam kept quiet through all of this, and he let him speak until the other man became silent. In his reply, however, the Imam did not say any improper thing, nor complain to the man of using abusive language. At that time, the fourth Imam was ill and was also a traveler and had experienced the hardships of the journey from Kufa to Damascus. Even though he was so bereaved and afflicted, he arrived in a city which at the time was the center of the enemy of Ahl Bayt. The Syrian had used abusive language. He expressed displeasure and thanked Allah that the Ahl Bayt had been defeated in battle. Despite all of this, all of these annoyances and fury, he kept calm, didn't lose his temper or give a harsh reply. So this kind of shows that it's possible for a person to control their anger in any such situation. But it's kind of a lead by example situation. And the Imam behaved towards the old Syrian like a kind and sympathetic teacher, as if he had experienced nothing from him except kindness and respect, and just asked him mildly. He said, "Have you read the Quran?" The old man replied, "Yes, why not?" And the Imam said to him, "Have you not read the verse that says, 'Say, O Muhammad, I do not want from you any recompense for my teaching to you. I do not want from you any recompense for my teaching to you, except that you should love my kin.'" So he, again, you can see he referenced the Quran here. The man replied, "Yes, he has read that." And the Imam said to him, "I swear by Allah that we are the kinsmen of the Holy Prophet." It may be said with certainty that this very question must have created a kind of a confusion in the mind of that man. He asked the man, "Have you not?" Then the Imam went on. He said, "Have you not read this verse?" And again, he's referencing the Quran. "People of the house, Allah wants to remove all kinds of uncleanliness from you and purify you thoroughly." The man replied, "Yes, I have." The Imam said, "We are the people of the household whose infallibility has been testified by Allah." The Syrian thereupon raised his hands in prayer and said 3 times, "O Allah, I repent and I am regretful for what I have done. O Lord, I am disgusted with those who are enemies of the progeny of the Holy Prophet and who have killed them. I do not know how it so happened. I have read the Quran but did not pay attention to these verses." So this kind of shows that even in such a situation, the Imam is teaching and he's kind of leading people to the right path. And then the last situation is that I want to talk about is the opportunity that the Imam got in the court of Yazid. I did a similar speech last year where I talked about this speech in depth, but I'll just kind of go over it thoroughly. But this was when the Imam was brought before Yazid, and Yazid asked for the Imam who was chained at the time. He said that to Yazid, he said, "O Yazid, I put you on oath in the name of Allah, just to imagine how the Holy Prophet will feel if he sees us in this condition." And he went on to say a very long speech, which is very powerful. If you get the chance, you should definitely read it in the entirety. But the gist of this speech is basically making known the position of the Ahl Bayt. He says, he starts off the speech by saying that Allah has granted us 6 and given us excellence in 7. The 7 that he says that Allah has given them excellences, and from us is Rasulullah, from us is Ali, from us is Hamza, from us is Jafar, from us is Hassan, from us is Hussein, and from us is the Mahdi. So, and then he goes on to kind of talk about like who the Ahlul Bayt are, and he kind of, some of the things he says is like, I am the son of Makkah and Mina, I am the son of Zamzam and Safa, I am the son of the man who led the angels in prayer, I am the son of the man who was taken to Sidratul Muntaha, I am the son of Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I am the son of Ali al-Murtada. I'm the son of the man who fought with 2 swords and 2 spears and went on 2 migrations. So you can see that this whole kind of speech, the purpose of it was to make his position known. So when he got towards the end of the speech, he talks, he tells the people that I'm the son of Fatima Zahra. I'm the son of the man who was slain on the earth of Karbala. At this point, though, these words proved to be very effective. All those who were present there began to weep, and Yazid ordered the people ordered Yazid, or they told the Yazid to take the chains off of the Imam. When this happened, Yazid said to the Muazzin, recite the Azan, so that he doesn't let the Imam continue. So they called out Allahu Akbar. Imam Zain al-Abidin said, truly there is none as great as Allah. And then when they said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, he said, truly I testify there is no Lord but Allah. But when the Muazzin said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Imam Zain al-Abidin said, O Yazid, is Muhammad your grandfather or is he mine? If you say he is your grandfather, then you're a liar. But if you say he is mine, then why did you kill my father on the plains of Karbala? Because of this khutbah and the strength of it and the fact that there were a lot of people who heard this, it changed a lot of people's perspective towards, like a lot of people didn't know who these people were. And because of the speech, it allowed the speech that was given, Yazid had to allow the Imam to leave. And eventually the Imam returned back to Medina, being accepted from giving allegiance to Yazid. So he lived for about 30 years after this. And some of the things that he did is he reformed the society that he was living in. So the question is that how did he do that? So there's a few things that he recognized that people that were at the helm of the Islamic Empire were the same ones that had killed his father. So he began a reform system of the whole Islamic Empire in 35 years. And he gave Islam life after it was in a state of death, though through his actions, speeches, and khutbahs. So what I'll briefly touch on some of the things that he did. He kept on purchasing more servants in his house and teaching them the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. He cultured them with the teachings of his grandfather. His servants were more religious than most of the Muslims that day. His servants said that they were treated with more humility from him than anyone else. And what eventually happened due to this is his servants becoming so learned, they went and taught other people, and those people taught other people. So he kind of started by just within his own house, within his own household, and just teaching from everyone that's in his house. He also spent time writing a magnificent book of supplications, which is called Sahif al-Sajjadiyah. He believed that dua is the weapon of the believer, and dua is what opens our relationship up with God. When the Arabs had killed his father, they had lost all that relationship with God. So in this book, he has many duas, like there's duas for your mother, dua for your father, dua for the companions of the Prophet. So it's a very comprehensive book, and it's definitely something that everyone should pick up and read. It's translated in English. And when he would say something in his dua, he would also act on it. And so he didn't just write this book and just give it to the people. He would show through his actions. Like, for example, he would have a dua for like the poor, and then show that he's giving charity and he's helping others and stuff. So that was another thing. And then the other thing that he did is he wrote another book called Risalat al-Huquq, which is the treatise of rights of the human being. So this is another book that he's written, and it has the right of everything. It has the right of everything on you. So this book changed the way that people looked at the religion of Islam. At that time, all they really had was the Quran. They didn't have any of these hadith books. They weren't published really. So this book kind of changed the way people viewed Islam aside from the Quran, like what Islam really is in terms of at its core. So I would say like the book itself is a great way to introduce someone to Islam. If you use the Quran, someone who's not familiar with the context or not familiar with the wordings in there, they may not be that open to like reading and interpretation and looking at the history behind each of the verses. Whereas this book just teaches you the core basis of Islam. So it's kind of divided into many parts, 6 major parts. And it talks about, the first one is that talks about the right of Allah against oneself, the right of acts, which is like the right of fasting, prayer, Hajj, the rights of leaders, the rights of subjects, the right of womb relatives, including like your mother, father, brother, sister, the right of others, meaning like non-Muslims, your neighbor, even the muazzin. So it's a very comprehensive book, and it changed the society at that time when it was authored by the Imam. And then another thing he did is he changed the society around him with the salah. At that time, he used to have a lot of people that would come to him, and he would always show them by example that he was always in salah and he was always in prostration, which is why he came to be known as Al-Sajjad. Despite being always in prostration, he made a point to always say, my worship is not half of my grandfather, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then the last thing is what he did after Karbala is that he showed through his companions that he reformed society through his companions. So like I mentioned, his companions were were taught by him. So including like the servants that used to live in his house, he would teach them. Also as his companions, he would be the one that would teach them and again, show them by example. Due to his continued work, the Caliph Hisham ibn Abdul Malik was overshadowed by the respect people showed to the Imam. It was the time of Hajj when both of them were trying to reach the black stone through the crowd, doing tawaf of the Kaaba. The people gave way to Imam Zain al-Abidin while Hisham struggled desperately to get to the front. This deeply offended the Caliph, and it was later that the Umayyad Caliph Hisham ibn Abdul Malik poisoned him. And after his death, many people discovered their livelihoods had come from him. He would go out with sacks of food on his back, knocking at the doors of more than 100 families, and he gave freely to whoever answered while covering his face to avoid being recognized. Every angle of his life was an example for us, but he would never forget what happened in Karbala. If he saw a sheep being slaughtered, he would say, "O butcher, do you give your sheep water before you slaughter it?" And the butcher would say, "Of course, O Zain al-Abidin, every creation of Allah deserves water before it's killed." And he would start crying and look at him and say, "They killed my father without giving him water." Imam al-Baqir was with his father, Imam Sajjad, when he was on his deathbed. This was about 35, 37 years after Karbala. He said, "I came to my father," and this is Imam al-Baqir saying this, he said, "I came to my father, I embraced my father along the chest. My father began to cry in a way I had never seen him cry. I said, 'Why are you crying, father? In a moment, you'll see Rasulullah, Imam Ali, Al-Fatima, Al-Hassan, Al-Hussein.' He said, 'Oh son, I cry because when I'm dying, you are on my chest. When my father was dying, do you know who sat on the chest of my father?' Later, when his son was burying him, he said he saw the marks all over his body from the chains that they had used after Karbala. They had held him prisoner and they had chained him around his neck. These wounds were there over 35 years after. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.